welcome to the viewers of Dataquest. Today we are here for a very interesting and important discussion in the post-DeepSeek world. So for that, we have with us Manoj Payardha, who's the managing partner and co-founder at Caishen Capital LLC, and Piyush Goel, who is currently on a sabbatical, but has previously worked in companies like Capillary Technologies as SVP Engineering. So anyway, welcome Manoj and Piyush.
Thank you so much, Sunil.
Thanks for having us.
So actually, as I was speaking to you earlier, it's like when ChatGPT came out, the entire model of ChatGPT was very fascinating with the LLMs and the data crunching happening behind with the NVIDIA chips and all. And now suddenly we have a DeepSeek, which is a totally different model. So for a layman he's looking at ChatGPT, which was something of a breakthrough, and he's looking at DeepSeek, which is also another revolutionary breakthrough, but they don't seem to be on the same path. They seem to be following different paths in the way they are operated, in the way infrastructure is behind them, and even in terms of the country that is behind it. So maybe both of you can just demystify what is happening here.
Piyush, you want to start or should I start?
I don't mind taking the first shot. And
okay, sure.
Right. So Sunil, see, when ChatGPT, came on the scene big time in 2022, right? So essentially, what they did is they built a model based on the Google's paper from 2017 called "Attention is All You Need," right? That was the general purpose transformer architecture, right? It was a generic architecture which was trained on billions of parameters using huge amount of compute clusters, primarily NVIDIA chips, right? And their focus was on training it on a diverse and a vast data set spanning across several verticals, industries, and modes as well, right? Legal documents, papers, the content crawl of the internet. And because they are kind of going horizontally in terms of training their data, they need a lot of compute, and they did a wonderful job. Honestly, I think even now their current models 4.0 and all are pretty accurate in general purpose content generation and all. However, the innovation that DeepSeek came with is, again, as we say, adversity brings a lot of innovation. I think as the US and China tensions and trade wars escalated, right, and Chinese companies did not have access to very powerful and new age chips, I think some of the scientists at DeepSeek had to go back to the drawing board and see what is fundamentally different that they could do to achieve a similar levels of quality and depth in the models, right? So the fundamental difference that they brought in is they use something called as a mix of experts architecture, right? Which essentially means that you train several parts of your model on a very vertical, specific or nuanced data set, right? So which kind of brings in expertise from different areas together. And another, if you go one level deeper, you will find that, in computer science, there's something called as a floating point operations, right? And the accuracy or the precision of your floating point operations is what makes a difference when you're talking about billions and billions of training data sets, right? So ChatGPT originally was using 32 points of precision or accuracy on their decimal points. So if you think about it, when we talk about billions of parameters, every parameter getting expressed with a 32-point precision. What DeepSeek did is, given that they did not have access to the latest chips, they thought, can we try with a lower precision decimal set, for instance, 8 points, which essentially means 1/4 the size of your decimal digit on every knob of your model, essentially. And what they were able to achieve is that they could achieve similar levels of quality with almost 75% reduction in the compute power needed or the amount of infrastructure that they needed, essentially, right? Another thing they did is that they trained their models on phrases instead of tokens. Again, in the AI world, you would have heard these jargons, right? So what ChatGPT does is it looks at every word as a token, and it kind of parses through every token. So for instance, if I'm crawling the whole internet, then I'm talking about trillions of tokens being parsed, and from there I'm arriving at a weighted set of precisions of 32 decimal points each, right? What DeepSeek does is it started training on phrases. So essentially the overall compute or power needed for DeepSeek is much lower, and at the same time they are able to give a similar quality of reasoning and logical planning on the different type of tasks that they have. I think that's where the fundamental difference between DeepSeek and ChatGPT lies, Sunil. Over to you, Manoj.
Great. I think that's a very good summary. I think I'll just try to be complimentary to whatever Piyush has suggested. Uh, Obviously, we can take a lot of steps back, but I think if we take a few more steps back to what Piyush has suggested, what he has suggested is from a paper from 2017. If you go a couple of years back, there was another paper that was essentially introduced something called as residual block slope paper that was about what we now understand as ResNet. So this was sometime in 2015 and it came out of China. It came out of Microsoft Research Labs that was based in Beijing. And if you look at any artificial intelligence ML algorithm, ML research that is conducted today, it is almost practically impossible to create a paper without referencing ResNet. And it is, I think, today the most cited paper in the history of computer science and information theory, which is quite astounding considering this is only a 10-year paper and we have lots and lots of fundamental theorems in computer science stretching almost over 100 years. So this was a crazy seminal paper and it has over 200,000 plus, like 2 lakh plus citations. Yeah, so this paper essentially solved some of the big problems that existed, in neural networks forever. I mean, the large American corporations had also reached a point where they were accumulating way too much data, and enterprises were also accumulating a lot of data. And what was essentially happening in this AI/ML world was essentially mostly data analytics, right? You were not able to generate intelligence through this data, and that was because of some core problems that existed with neural networks, which this kind of paper kind of addressed on how do you let go, how do you overcome degradation, so on and so forth. So post that, now you had this paper, which was what attention is all you need, and it's a very nice paper which essentially talks about to put it very simply, just the attention that you need relative to each other words, right? So what are, if you say what are, maybe the wait for you to come in should be higher than everything else. So like, so this kind of waiting or just paying basic attention to these things can actually improve the model a lot. And this idea was deployed by this idea was out in the market. And finally, you have so much amounts of data in the world at an exascale, petabyte scale and so on and so forth. But we had already reached a point where accumulating more and more data was not giving higher and higher intelligence. So the VC ecosystem in United States came up with this idea that let's have this open source project, which is what OpenAI is, where we essentially put resources into it. Now, if you are an enterprise and you want to use AGI or artificial intelligence, how do you use it? You have access to only some amount of data that is generated within your own data sets, right? That is not sufficient for you to actually become an intelligent company. Right? So what they came up with, that's where Elon Musk and bunch of these other guys got together. They invested in this idea that, okay, now we have these breakthroughs that have happened where actually neural networks can give you real intelligence, and now we can crunch large amounts of data. And that's when they funded OpenAI, and then Ilya, who was working in Google Brain that time, which was that time being led by a gentleman called Andrew Ng. Ilya was actually a postdoc under him. So whatever is that history, they all started this OpenAI, and they leveraged on this particular data, leveraged on the amount of data that's available on the internet and all these new algorithms that have come in to develop what was GPT. And the success of GPT, or at least how it was perceived, was so big that billions and billions of dollars started going into this particular project. Now we have to understand where the role of NVIDIA and all this US-China war comes in. So if you look at ex-China, if you remove China from the current ecosystem of technology globally, there is a joke in Indian startup community that all the money that VC send into India gets funneled back into technology companies of United States, right? So whether it's very hard for somebody to believe that in India, a lot of these companies, actually some of the big companies, have billings to the order of almost 60 to 70 million dollars, and some of them have or at least have had at some point a billing of north of 100 million dollars per year in their cloud compute.
Okay.
Right. So what's happening is you have these hyperscalers in America, the AWSs, the Google Clouds, the Azure. No matter where technology gets built, if technology scales tomorrow, right? If you and I, we both start a company together, or Mr. Pradeep, your boss starts a company tomorrow, a technology company, and if he starts acquiring more and more customers, needs more and more compute, every single layer of every single additional compute that he does, every single client that he adds, essentially starts paying more and more money to these mega giants in United States. And this led to this boom of Nasdaq, where you have companies like Apple, Google, all of them, like not Google. Google does not have a $3 trillion, but Microsoft at least. They all started having $3+ trillion in market value, almost like the GDP of India. Now the VC ecosystem in United States came up with this brilliant idea. Let's do it with AI as well, right? Let's do it with AI. That we are going to have these hyperscalers in America, and and we are going to go build them all at a scale that's unimaginable. I'll explain how they have also planned this. And then no matter what AI/ML infrastructure or what AI/ML model anybody anywhere builds across the world, whether it's Southeast Asia ka Grab, not just India's Ola, Southeast Asia's Grab, or any other company anywhere, Flexi bus in Germany, whichever company it is, whenever they scale, they end up giving some money to United States. So let's do this with AI as well. And with AI, it's even going to be even bigger, because AI, it's very difficult to imagine a function where you cannot have artificial intelligence. And that is where NVIDIA comes in. So the problem with AI is essentially, just to give you an example, for DeepSeek also, DeepSeek did fantastic optimizations. We can go into further details if needed later on. Despite that, according to their technical paper, they had trained the model over 60 days. They had used 4060 RTX graphics cards, which they bought for their parent company, which was High Flyer Quant Trading. So they trained it over 60 days. So United States realized that, and then there is a big problem with this whole chip world, right? One is you have your CPUs, which rely so much upon accuracy. The other is GPUs, and GPUs you can let go of. It's like a trade-off between accuracy versus parallel processing, like how much amount of compute you can push through, how much amount of throughput you can do. So NVIDIA was in the GPU space, and it had a nice leg ahead in front of everyone else. And the big problem with chips for the last 1.5 decades has not been chip design. It has been chip manufacturing. That is, how do you etch the design that you have onto a silicon wafer? That is the fundamental problem with chips in the world. And as we speak, despite what people say, at scale which is profitable, there is no place on planet Earth other than Taiwan where you can fabricate sub 7 nanometer chips. That is, you can. There are bunch of people like Intel was ready with some 5 nanometer chip designs so many years back, but they could never figure out how to etch them onto a silicon wafer. So now, and every time you change the node, it's a complete new capital expenditure where you have to set up a new fabrication unit that is several billions and billions of dollars. So what United States and all these guys observed is, this is a big rate determining step. This is a big blocker. And if we control the highest node chips, highest node GPUs, and actually Jensen Huang does one video where he explains how powerful these GPUs are. There is no time scale in which even if you get the best mathematicians, AI/ML researchers together, and even if they build the best models, they will always lag behind us because the model training is going to require so much amount of power, whereas my GPUs, the most latest GPUs, will be so much more powerful than the previous one, that the final intelligence that I will deploy will be much higher than anything else. This was the belief. And leading models will come out of United States, and this was actually very true, right? I mean, because China had other open AI projects like Quen, like Kaifu Loose 01.ai. They were all also built upon other open source projects. They all, to the best of our knowledge, till very recently at least, did not perform as well as some of the leading edge models of United States. Primarily because the most advanced chips were with United States, and the way they have designed it is also amazing right now. And that's why Nvidia went to a 3.5, $3.6 trillion market cap. And the market cap is justified because just orally between the five big companies, the FANG companies, between Microsoft, Meta, Google, all these Tesla and Apple, all these guys, the order book, there's a pending 1 million orders of that copper GPUs, which are produced practically in only one fabrication unit across the world. Right, and the pipeline is probably, some say 2 years, some say 1.5 years. I don't know how long it's going to take. And each of these is $25,000 to $50,000. So you're talking about a 25, 30, $40 billion order book with a gross margin of 90%. On every one that they sell, they make a profit of like 90% every GPU. So that's why Nvidia had this super high valuation, and all. Okay, this is a brilliant idea. We are set. American hegemony in technology is all set. It's game over. Now we have blocked the chips part. Then this has a counter effect, right? The counter effect is one thing that is very not well appreciated by the world, and not known to the world, not known to many, is that if you look at theoretical AI ML researchers, an absurdly large number actually come from China. Like it is not even close. It is not even close. Like it is, the Chinese universities are the universities that are producing an enormous. Even if you go to ResNet, the seminal paper in 2015, even that came out of Beijing. Those were also like Tsinghua Peking students. Almost even today, if you look at OpenAI, all the researchers, everyone who is making any contribution of like whether it's their, like all of them are, again, whether it's Meta, whether it's this, and not just Chinese students who go and do their PhDs at Stanford, Berkeley, and all these places, but actually even Chinese students who have never even studied outside. They are also big part of this. They are also getting recruited into these teams and building. And what was happening was, if you control this, just like CERN has, the biggest particle accelerator, the biggest scientists have to land up in CERN in order to do their research. Similarly, all these Chinese were also being funneled in. So the idea was that the great idea of the American VC ecosystem is, we will keep this moat of Nvidia. So this idea was that, okay, even if talent comes out of China, they have no other option but to come back to United States. We will have the highest efficiency. We will have the best AI ML researchers who will produce the best models. We will have the best GPUs in the world, which can actually make these intelligent. We will have these hyperscalers. Once we have these intelligence models, these hyperscalers at scale can do the best inferencing. What a plan! It's like close. The entire world will keep using us. And this will be like a frontier economy for ever and ever and ever. So this is why the American companies had this boom, where every single one of them were like 3.5, 3.6. Practically, if this is true, Nvidia market value of $6 trillion, according to my calculations, was actually valid. Based on if you have like an order book, only a single order book, where your profits are about $20 billion, it's not a joke, right? Yeah, so then this had to be this. So that's why it was. So few things to what Piyush had mentioned is that in 2024, in mid of 2024, there was a paper that was released called DeepSeek Math. Okay, And that paper introduced a concept called group relative policy optimization. So it was a very interesting concept. So it started off what is actually the technical revelation, the major technical innovation of DeepSeek in reasoning. So firstly, I'll list this technical innovation, which is essentially their work in reasoning. Prior to this, all reasoning models in United States so LLMs themselves do not have any reasoning models. They are basically, they go through large amounts of data and they can predict the next word based on whatever they have been trained, and because of that they can always keep giving wrong answers or hallucinate. So you need some amount of human reasoning in order to make sure that they don't give wrong answers and they give correct answers. So the way reasoning was happening previously, the reasoning models that everyone else was building had something called as external evaluators or critics. Okay, these are human based heuristics that were loaded on top of the model to make reasoning efficient. And this was also become a big industry, these evaluators. So these were essentially, there were companies like Scale.ai and bunch of others who used to actually observe how humans reason, and they make all these pipeline of human reasoning they used to provide this as some kind of a data structure and give it to these large scale AI ML companies. And these companies like Scale AI and all had become unicorns in their own right. There were many like that. So this DeepSeek math came up with reasoning via reinforced learning, completely eliminating these external evaluators or critics, which is nothing but human heuristics, to make reasoning intelligent. And obviously you can ask, why didn't others think of it? Because structuring it was not easy. People obviously, there was an idea that for example, this is best similar to the AlphaZero paper, where the model essentially learns by playing with itself on how to become a better player, and in 6 hours of training it became the best Go player ever without ever seeing a human game. Similarly with chess as well. But people couldn't structure it. People didn't understand how do you quantize this human reasoning. But with GRPO, they were able to do that. So, but that math paper was left aside. Like, people did not pay much attention to it, which was released almost 8-9 months back, because at an individual industry level, these models can be trained specific to. You can build models that are experts in certain domains. By training them with data from that domain, you can actually make them good at it. So that's why nobody paid attention to it, but they did not realize it was actually a fundamental breakthrough. And when the DeepSeek V3 came out, and then it came out in December, nobody bothered. Okay, the idea was this, right? And the Americans had already figured something else out also, which is that, okay, like let's say the Chinese also come up with some model which suddenly performs better than United States also. No big deal, because you have all these Kai-Fu Lee and all these guys like 01.ai, ByteDance, you have Alibaba. Then somebody will do something, they may, but there is nothing to worry. And DeepSeek V3 came out in December. It was performing well. It was open source. Somehow nobody bothered about it. But in January 20th or 21st or 22nd, they released the 20th. They released the R10 paper. And that R10 paper showed that the reasoning developed by DeepSeek is completely independent of human heuristics or human intelligence. That it has discovered reasoning through reinforcement learning. So that was when the people who understood this place kind of, and then it blew out. Now, what were they thinking previous to that? Previous to that, the American belief or the belief in the AI/ML ecosystem was that there is something called as SFT, supervised fine tuning. So supervised fine tuning is a very interesting concept, and the Americans. So it is essentially what is like you have it's like a very layman explanation would be supervised fine tuning would be something like you just put something in, you get out, and then a person goes and gives the final polishing touches, right? So what they believe, which in an AI/ML world would be, you have like a data, and you fine tune the model in a supervised manner, feeding it the data. Like if you want like correct answers about capitals of the world, you fine tune it by training it with a controlled data set of like a list of capitals of the world, and training it on that. So the Americans believe that at best what the Chinese can do is they can do supervised fine tuning in many ways. Sit from morning to evening, they'll hire 1,000 idiotic engineers. All they will do is SFT of like multiple data sets, or maybe they'll call in like OpenAI ka answers, and they will train on like that data sets, and it will be like a crazy supervised fine tuning with no technological breakthroughs. That is what was the belief. But then they were confident, yeah, but all this will not scale non-linearly. By the time they do it, we'll come up with the next more intelligent model, smarter model, and it will cross them. So they believed that, but so that was why they were not worried. But when they realized that, okay, this reasoning was actually developed by the model's intelligence itself, it blew their minds. And that's why the whole chaos, these guys talking so much, obviously they threw in their standard attacks which were pre-prepared. Okay, they must have fine-tuned it, they must have done this, they must have done that, they must have stolen GPUs. Maybe they lied about the cost of training, all of that. But truth is, you and I, nobody can really know how much it costed DeepSeek to train their models unless or until we see their electricity bills.
Yeah.
What we can do is, we can look at the technical paper they have released, the technical report that they have published, and identify whether the optimizations that they have suggested are actually technically feasible or not. So this has been done. This has been done by HKUST university folks with Berkeley teams. They have taken the technical paper at a small level. They have recreated the methods that they have suggested, with which actually they have got the optimizations that have been suggested. Now, that's all that matters. I mean, we don't really need to know what was their actual electricity bill, or what was the actual GPU use. So this is it. So this is the high level overview of the history of this. I don't know. I think I went on too many tangents. Apologies for that.
Yeah. No, I mean, see, what I'm saying
is a very interesting story of the great master plan.
Yeah. No, so what I'm thinking is, and I agree, it's like a lot of us don't know this, but it sounds like one, as you said, one great big sorry, it sounds like one great big master plan, and it's like a Goliath, right? Because Nvidia is a $3 trillion company. Even Microsoft invested, it was 3 trillion, and even OpenAI is worth hundreds of billions. Now DeepSeek is coming off like a David. Now what I want to ask is it really a David? Because why, I'll tell you, everyone cannot be a Goliath, but everyone can be a David.
Yeah.
I mean, not many people in the world can create this Nvidia OpenAI model, but I think everyone can create a DeepSeek model. So if DeepSeek is even 90% of ChatGPT, 20% of the price, are we seeing a change in the way? Because obviously I will not, as a startup founder, I'll want to seek the DeepSeek model, and as even a customer, if somebody is giving it to me. And also there's one thing, it is truly OpenAI. I mean, OpenAI calls themselves OpenAI, but they have become one shut big giant. But on the other hand, what DeepSeek is giving anyone, so is DeepSeek really going to challenge ChatGPT? And if it challenges, what stops from there being 1,000? Like today, I cannot have 1,000 ChatGPTs. That is not possible. But I can have 1,000 DeepSeeks.
Yes.
So I'm just curious how this is going to play out.
So Sunil, so the thing is, DeepSeek has actually shown to the world that you don't need thousands and thousands of GPUs or massive clusters to train your own AI models. And even DeepSeek has pretty much made it open source, as you rightly said, right? And also, Nvidia launched this series of Jetson Nano GPUs recently, which were priced at like $250 or $300 a piece, right? Now, essentially, it has, I would say, a level playing field has been created for everyone out there, right? The idea is, with a small team of smart engineers, you just get your hands on some cutting edge GPUs, pick up open models like DeepSeek, right? And you can just fine tune it and train it for your own domain specific knowledge sets, and you have a model which is going to outperform some of these general purpose models, if I may use that term, like ChatGPT and Anthropic and the likes, right? For instance, the one of the power of DeepSeek is reasoning, and the primary, the reasoning underpinning that is it has been trained for those kind of tasks really, really well, and it's going to clearly outperform general purpose models essentially, right? So you just take a DeepSeek. Let's say you want to build a medical assistant which can look at 2 scans or X-rays of a chest of a patient, and it can identify which one is showing signs of a cancerous tumor, because we have gone ahead and fine-tuned that model with so much of accuracy, with a very high precision, and you can actually just create a breakthrough in the medical models as well. And as you rightly said, I think it has pretty much leveled the playing field, and I don't think ChatGPT and the likes are gonna have a monopoly, assuming they have something under their sleeve which they're gonna unveil in the coming weeks or months. But I do feel that the AI arena has been, it has been completely disrupted.
So, just to add to what Piyush has said, I want to go back to your David Goliath comparison, because I also read it somewhere. So, I think it's a very, very good question with a lot of meanings. So, firstly, whether DeepSeek is a David or actually it's a secret Goliath, like who knows? People are saying something. If something is too good to be true, generally it is not true, right? That is what life has taught us. It's better to be cynical. Having said that, I am an extremely cynical person. Having said that, I do believe DeepSeek is a David for one simple reason, is that China doesn't need Davids. China today, if you look at it, the gentleman I mentioned before, Andrew Ng, right, who was essentially the CEO of Google Brain, he was later on Baidu's chief scientist. Okay, if you look at Kai-Fu Lee, that guy is more or less like one of those foundational scientists in AI/ML. He's been working in China for almost 20 years. He's the guy leading the 01.ai project.
Right.
If you look at Alibaba, Tencent, Baidu, Xiaomi, all these Chinese companies, they have like a huge capital reserve. They have, and this is something actually one of my seniors from IIM Calcutta, I've just once pinged her and asked her if this is true, to check on this, and she said that this probably could be true, and she teaches at like some of the top places in United States, some of the biggest places in United States, which is that DeepSeek has this one of these engineers who did this core research, who was actually right out of college. She was offered as a college student $1 million by Xiaomi apparently, and then but she joined DeepSeek. $1 million to a college graduate. So it was very hard for me to believe that. So I checked with them, and she said that she doesn't know anyone, but she doesn't know her salary obviously specifically, but she knows people who have just come out of college and university who in China are actually drawing that kind of money. So the Chinese institutions, the Chinese capital, the Chinese government support, there is enough capital for them to not go and create these mythical David-like creatures. They can actually finance a proper Goliath.
Yeah.
That is another argument which this semi-analysis Dylan Patel guy keeps making, and he has made some beautiful arguments, and which is true. So DeepSeek was also not popular in China, and if you look at it, and also after DeepSeek came out, the first company that released another model challenging it was not OpenAI or others. OpenAI now came up with something called Deep Research today, but that's putting that aside. It was actually Alibaba's Goel, because they consider themselves as the torchbearers of Chinese intelligence, and they don't want to be dethroned, and they are not a David in any sense of the word. They are,
true.
They are a proper Goliath monopoly with the most monopolistic of all instincts.
Yeah.
So if you look at the background of DeepSeek, it had this fund which with an AUM that peaked at $15 billion.
Yeah.
Quant trading fund, $15 billion quant trading fund. I mean, that's almost 1.2 lakh crores. Right. How many Indian funds, NBFCs have that kind of capital? Let's just not just one trading entity.
Yeah.
you're talking about 1,000 crores is a big deal for us. Like if there is a fund with trading fund with 1,000 crores or 2,000 crores or 3,000 crores, you're talking about 1.2 lakhs of just quant trading. Even if they make losses, you're talking about a revenue of $300 million. So this Lian Langford guy is not like a is properly capital intensive, and so he is himself quite rich with the ability to build. And I also believe I have actually read his podcast or kind of a translated interview that he gave, and I kind of agree with a lot of stuff he says. He says one of the reasons for his success was that he ended up hiring people who were right out of college, and DeepSeek's team average age is like 24, 25. And like, he even has like interns working for him who are like third-year students at Zhejiang universities and all these local Chinese universities. And the kind of innovations they made require some amount of good number theory, reanalysis, core math, functional analysis, interest to sidestep CUDA and directly go bring some register of optimization. These are not things that people who have gone into an engineering team at OpenAI or Microsoft or Alibaba, they essentially get trained in a certain way to think in a certain way. These are not people who remember basic number theory on mathematical operators and how that can lead to essentially the 8-bit floating point error quantization, which Piyush mentioned. Primarily it comes from pure math. It comes from number theory, real analysis, functional analysis, where you understand, like you use a smaller string of instead of, just to make it more clear, let's say if you want to do if you want to add pi and pi, and you ask that to a computer, if you have a 32-bit string plus a 32-bit string, 2 pi's, it will be more closer to the actual answer of 2 pi. And rather than having it only at like an 8-bit string and an 8-bit string, right? The error will be much larger in this 8-bit versus 32-bit. That's all. So you want to use you can't keep reducing the string size because computations become easily, but then you keep on increasing the error. That is the quantization of error. So these are all mathematical things which usually computer science labs, I mean, obviously people have learned them in their courses in com science. They have, like I and Piyush learned, we both are classmates, but it's not something that you remember after you work in a proper job, right? So I actually believe it is a David, and I actually believe that the optimizations that he brought in actually were because they brought in young kids, and I don't know if it will stay as a David or not. The other thing that going forward, which is very important to remember, is GPUs are always going to benefit you. If no matter how much amount of math wizardry you have, if you have ability to compute more, your marginal intelligence is going to be higher. So that will always be something that OpenAI will have. That will always be something United States will have. Now, then comes the question: how does China? What benefit does China have here? Like, what are the big things? The most important benefit China has is it's to its own internal people. That is my feeling. That today, the biggest benefit for United States is that, like the Kern thing I suggested, right? We have the best particle accelerator, so all experimental physicists have to take up a job there to actually get papers published in Nature and Science. You can't do it sitting in Hyderabad research laboratories. In a similar manner, now Chinese students who are going to come out, who are doing this AI/ML research, they will not see this belief that if you want to do cutting edge research, you have to go to West Coast. That idea will get evaporated. That idea that yes, I have to be in San Francisco or in Seattle to do the most important work. So that idea will go away, and that will be the benefit. And now we have to see what happens to the NVIDIA's competing AI chips that China has, which is the Ascend AI chips. The Ascend AI chips on their own are actually as good as the Hopper series. They are only marginally worse. And they are only marginally worse, but they are limited by their ability to produce they can design chips that are as good as Nvidia GPUs. That capability they have, but currently they do not have what is essentially called a EUV, okay, which is a machine, which is a complex machine. It's it's a completely different topic. It's about ultraviolet lithography, extreme ultraviolet lithography. So they don't have access to that machine, and they're only built by one company called ASML.
Okay.
So how they will use that and grow? These are all like questions out in the open because they do not have a EUV, but they have some patents and they're growing in that direction. But the day they build their own EUV, then Nvidia's chip monopoly will completely disappear. But building an EUV is not a joke. It is like a single equipment that costs anywhere between $150 million to $400 million. It looks like a bus. It literally looks like a proper bus where I mean it's a engineering marvel, which essentially draws the circuit onto a silicon wafer and enables you to make edge designs which are high nodes, sub 5 nanometer nodes. The day that happens, everything changes. Till then, United States will be the lead in AI.
Yeah. So actually, I think I have understood. You have explained quite fascinating what the China model is, what the America model is, and it's very interestingly how that war will face out. Like what you wanna that Jan 20 is an interesting date is because that's when DeepSeek released its models, and that's also the same day Donald Trump got inaugurated. So I think it's like really Jan 20 is going to play out. But now my question is, fine, I've understood this too. Where is India? I mean, I don't think we can fool ourselves. We are not a Goliath, but can we be a David? Because like we did well in the IT services domain. We have a pool of software engineers. We are the third largest startup ecosystem in the world, but we haven't come out with tech products which have beaten the world. That has been our biggest failing. But where do we stand in AI? I mean, can we be a David?
I'll take that question. After that, Piyush can join it because I have very strong views here.
Sure. Good.
As far as India is concerned, so we have to firstly be, for success, many GTM strategy, anything requires humility, right? I mean, United States has the best talent from across the world.
Right.
The guy, the topper at Tsinghua goes to United States. The topper at IIT Bombay goes to United States. The Piyush and I are classmates at IIT Kharagpur in computer science. The smartest guys, which are not the two of us, have all gone to United States. The guys who are doing the most cutting edge work. Piyush is also doing great work, but nonetheless, they have all gone to United States. So we have to realize that monopoly is going to exist, that the smartest people are going to be there. The best research is going to happen there. And China also accepts that very humbly. So what they have invested is, yes, the smartest people will keep going. We cannot stop them.
Right.
It will have only counter. We have done that in like cultural revolution, all that stuff. We don't want to go back to that era. They have invested heavily in education. The Chinese Ministry of Education budget is over $1 trillion. It is greater than the United States military budget, plus the United States CIA budget, and bunch of other 3-letter coded words in the United States. So they have spent huge amounts of money in education. So in China, if I slightly socially, upwardly mobile person in India, similar to me, if there is someone in China, my kids' education will be free of cost. They will go to a public school. They offer the best education. So it comes from a ground up. And then you can, you have to invest a lot at that scale, so that even if there is any bleeding with brain drain and all, you still have enough resources to do it. But I think, unfortunately, we have a lot of problems there. Now coming to what India can do, which is amazing. What India can do is we have to leverage these open AI, open source models. There is going to be a huge boom now that software has intelligence that can be deployed at an edge level. What is not understood is that DeepSeek, yeah, they have released that 671 billion parameter model, which shows their capabilities, all that good paper, reasoning, discovery, all that, well done, well done. But they have also released what is essentially distilled models, which are with smaller parameters. They have used distilled models from Alibaba and bunch of others. They have used those models and they have created distilled intelligence small models. Any SaaS company in India that is selling to United States, Europe can adopt these models. Don't worry about data going out. These are distilled models that can be downloaded onto your servers.
Okay.
Right now, Amazon, Azure have deployed those distilled models onto their own hyperscalers, onto their own systems, and they allow you to leverage that intelligence. Okay, use that intelligence, start producing intelligent products. Applying intelligence at edge has never been easier. And not just applying intelligence at the edge, but also product building has never been easier. For example, architecture design, software architecture design. I mean, it's amazing the kind of work these AI ML models do. It can compete with the principal architecture at architected some of these big software companies, right? That is the level of intelligence they have. Debugging, DevOps, QA. Right now, it makes you can just completely replace that with the intelligence that are provided. So we can be humble, accept where we are as a nation, invest in ground level research, invest in that, and parallelly realize, okay, let's just realize what we best can do, which is let these guys fight it out. We don't have to be in the middle of a war between two countries that have $20 trillion economy. We are a 3.6, 3.7, 3.8 trillion dollar economy. Let's stay out of the fight. Let those two elephants fight, and whatever benefits we get, let's absorb that and build. We have low cost. There are a lot of benefits that we have because of which we can grow and invest in the basics like education. Right now, in Bangalore, if an auto wala wants to send his kid can't get good education in India. In China, a taxi driver's kid can tomorrow become a DeepSeek researcher. Okay, right? Because he has access to very good education, right? And this is not a story that I'm saying to that I'm just sounding romantic. I actually have met a person whose father was essentially a factory worker, like one of those migrant workers. But she got good education in her village, okay, and later on went to one of the cracked Olympiads. All this went to one of the top Chinese universities, some Shanghai Jiaotong University, which is like a top one, and went on to have a great career. But her father was essentially one of the what we call as slave labors that China has. And later on, of course, his father also grew. He also opened his own company and had great life. But our education was taken care. So we don't have those. It's very difficult for us to have those stories because we do not have education for everyone, which is high quality. But for now, let's leverage, build. Let these elephants fight and let's grow on top. I'm sorry, I've taken too much time.
No problem.
Yeah, no, that's a great summary, Manoj. So, Sunil, I just want to narrate a couple of anecdotes. So, Capillary had a China business for almost 6-7 years, and I used to remotely manage an engineering team based in Shanghai, about 20-25 engineers. And I have traveled extensively in China. I used to travel almost every quarter. And the stories that I'm narrating are from 2018, mind you. Okay, I'm talking about 7 years as of today. Right. So interestingly, the first time I landed in Shanghai, I took a taxi from the Pudong airport to my hotel, and the cabbie who picked me up could not speak a single word of English, and I cannot speak a single word of Chinese Mandarin, right? and I was trying to use hand gestures and tell him where I want to go and all that blah blah blah. That taxi guy, what he did is he pulled out his phone, and it was a low-end Android phone. He pulled out an app. Again, the screen was in Mandarin. I could not make a sense of it, and he just shoved it in my face. So I assumed he wanted me to talk to it. And I'm speaking in my English that I want to go to so-and-so hotel in so-and-so district of Shanghai. In front of my eyes, that I've actually translated my Indian accented English into a Chinese phrase that man could read. He spoke to the phone in Chinese. He pressed the button, narrate in English, and the app actually spoke in an American accented response, right? And that's how the conversation transpired. He understood where I want to go, how much time it's going to take, and all of that happened, right? Incident number 1. Incident number 2. So our office was actually in a building that was almost about 65 floors. Our office was somewhere on the 33rd floor. And I think on the second or the third day of my trip to Shanghai, we were just walking towards our elevator, and we were just passing through the reception. And I saw a very nice, fancy-looking machine near the reception, and it reminded me of that R2-D2 robot from Star Wars. Right? And my Chinese colleague, I asked her that, what is that machine? You know what she said? So it's actually a machine that can deliver the parcels to your door on any floor of the building. And the way it works is the delivery person or the courier boy or the food delivery guy, like on the Swiggies and the Zomatos, or in India, delivery and Shadowfax, that person can go. That machine has a chest, right? You just open the door of the chest, you can place the container into it, and you just punch in the cell number of the individual to whom the parcel is to be delivered, and you just enter the unit number in the building, right? That robot is connected to the elevator software system of the building. It will automatically go there using the internal Bluetooth. It will send the signal to the elevator that it wants to board the elevator, wants to go to 30th floor, unit number this, whatever that is. It will automatically go inside. It will go park itself outside the unit's door, and it will send an SMS to the recipient that I'm standing outside, your parcel is here. Right? Third story, and this is a hearsay. This is not something I saw it on my own. This was someone narrated this to me, and this was a story from Hangzhou. Hangzhou is the headquarters of Alibaba, right? And Alibaba is a tech giant. And so what Alibaba was doing, working on an experiment along with the Hangzhou's travel, ministry. So what they had done is to track offenses on the roads, right? Like jaywalking and jumping the signals and all. What they had done is they had actually installed facial recognition cameras on almost every crossing, right? Every time someone jaywalks, the camera can actually, if it's able to capture at the right angles, it can actually do facial identification. It can map the photo to Sunil Rajguru. And Alibaba also runs a wallet called Alipay. That is one of the biggest wallets in the world, similar to what we, Paytm and the PhonePe have. And in case it is able to identify that it's a Sunil Rajguru, it will automatically go and deduct a fine from the Alipay wallet. Okay? So imagine this is the level of advancements China has on AI. I'm talking about 7 years ago. Right? If you talk about such stories in India, it will all seem science fiction. Right? So like at the age of Minority Report and all. This is happening in China 7 years ago. Right? Now, the learning for me from these anecdotes, Sunil, is that, I think as a country, we have to build some form of symbiotic relationship with our cutting edge companies, right? We have to partner with them. We have to give them the cover from external threats. At the same time, we have to give them the right funding and the right support. Also, we have to provide them a right distribution model, so to say, which allows them to take their products to the Indian consumers. Right? That is where China excels. Right now, China has a burgeoning startup ecosystem, but at the same time, Alibaba knows that any product they launch, they have access to almost 800 million consumers within their country that they can get to with assistance from the government. Right? How many Indian companies can say that? Right? We have so many startups coming in. While I'm not saying that we should become a closed economy like China. However, that's where all the stalwarts of the industry and the government have to come together and think through that. How do we encourage and help the emergent companies in the country, right? For instance, so there's an entrepreneur I'm a great fan of. His name is Paras Chopra, right? He recently got an exit by selling his company Wingify for $200 million.
Okay.
And he has made good amount of wealth for himself, and rightfully so. Just this morning, he announced that he is starting a AI company, and he wants to actually build some foundational models which can compete with the likes of Open, ChatGPT and DeepSeek and all. Right now, we have to identify such entrepreneurs who have the chops and the intent to build something groundbreaking and provide all the support necessary for them to succeed. Right? And I honestly feel India is lagging by decades. I won't say we are lagging by years, we are lagging by decades. Right? And I think it's high time that, be humble, understand that yes, we have lost a few decades, but at the same time, we still have good talent. We still have people who are willing to work hard. It's just about creating the right ecosystem and providing the right support to the people who can actually build something, the world will take notice of.
So I think that's quite.
Sunil,
Yeah, sure.
One point I wanted to add is that definitely what Piyush said is absolutely correct. I think that needs to be done. But I have a slight criticism towards the Indian IT ecosystem also.
Yeah.
The Indian IT ecosystem is one of the few places where we have actually captured retained earnings, right? Where we have actually captured good contribution margins, good gross margins.
Right.
We have a very good balance sheet where there is actually a good OCF number to be proud about.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, the IT ecosystem has not. There have been efforts here and there, this lab, that lab, they have created some subsidiaries, but they have not done a great job in terms of financing these kind of projects. For example, this Xiaomi, you and I think of it as your cheap mobiles besta. Okay, what is that? But truth is, Xiaomi Labs was the one that was trying to hire this girl who went to DeepSeek, and this story I told you, right?
Right.
So they were ready to offer her so much money. That means they have a lab division where all these people, all they are doing is just sitting and doing research, theoretical research, which may never come into something. That ResNet paper I suggested, it's actually from Microsoft Research Asia, which is nothing but a research lab where literally people just go. They work on publishing research papers and releasing patents. It may never have a single rupee of revenue ever for Microsoft, because this research is published and made public to everyone.
Right.
Unfortunately, the few IT companies which have captured some amount of capital have not reinvested in this AIML ecosystem. And even when they have moved away from services and tried to build products, they have only entered into products which are with high moats. Like, the kind like Finacle, with a lot of regulatory modes, where, once you deploy, a bank has adopted it and SBI has adopted it. No matter how innovative, let's say a guy like Piyush or someone comes with a new product, you cannot displace a Finacle. They have also done that, or built databases for government Aadhaar cards or government PF websites, things like that, where they have sold it as products. But they have been they have not been entrepreneurial, and even on the investments that they have made. Let's say Narayan Murthy ji has a family office, right, in Hyderabad. But not just Narayan Murthy ji, many others also. Wipro. But okay, the philosophy of Wipro ji is Azim Premji is different. But putting all of that aside, even the investments they have made are not moonshot ideas for an Indian economic scale, right? They are not innovative. They have generally made it with jahan you can see a scale of revenue, you can see growth with Indian consumer, a platform idea, all these. So that is something for the Indian tech leaders to think about, whether they have done a good job themselves.
Okay, so I think got a global overview of the top 3 populated countries in the world. So and it's already been 1 hour, and as you said, you can go on for hours on end. But I think we'll have to conclude this discussion. So I just want the conclusion, like, what is like the future like? Because for decades we have been hearing of the Turing question and algorithms and all, but 2022 suddenly the world changed, and December 2024 again the world changed. So can we expect like changes to come? Like I was asking, like, there's a Moore's law for chips. Is there a similar law for AI? So how smart is going to get AI? I mean, in a few years, is it going to like take over the world? And then what about things like data privacy, security, and all? So I mean, what do the next 5-6 years look like in a post Chat GPT and DeepSeek world?
Right. So, Sunil, I think Moore's law was applicable towards hardware advancements. Right now, I don't think there is a universal analog of that in the world of AI. Several type of laws have been, proposed by scientists and ML stalwarts, right? Something called as the Kaplan's law, right, which says that to achieve better and better models and higher efficiency and accuracy, you need more and more compute, and you need to train it on larger data sets and parameters, right? Similarly, there's something called as chinchilla scaling law, which actually came along with DeepSeek. Right, it has a counter view which says that you need to improve the quality of your data to get higher and higher accuracy. Right. Now, while you will keep doubling or you will keep increasing the GPU density, the quality of GPUs, and all of that is true. But again, at the same time, the way the AI world is evolving, I think eventually we will reach a point where just GPU or having more compute is not going to be enough. While having compute always helps, but other parameters will start having disproportionate weight on the quality. That's going to be the quality of your data sets, the kind of inferencing you are doing, and the domain for which you are training your models, and all of those things are certainly going to happen, right? Coming to your point about bias, privacy, and security. See, at the end of the day, the data which is being fed into the models is generated by humans, right? Essentially, our inherent human biases do reflect into that data. Now, unless there is a conscious effort in ensuring that the data is unbiased and the data does not carry all the prejudices that we have, the problem of biases will remain, essentially, right? Again, there have been enough number of stories where in the Western world, right, a lot of those CAPTCHA images and all those classification images tend to have a prejudices against African American people, right? The skin color does play a role in what the model trains, right? It could now, these biases could also be around, let's assume you're looking at a health model, right, and the model has been trained on patients coming from Africa or Asia or a particular part of the region. Now, it's been biologically proven that certain DNA structures or DNA sequences change depending on your parents' your geographical origin, right? So obviously your model will start giving more weightage to that, right? So the awareness has to be very, very high while the models are being trained, and at the same time, you have to do regular audits. You have to do regular checks on if their biases are existing. So one line of research on bias in the AI model is active. A lot of researchers are working on it. Right? That's something that will have to be taken care of, right? Security, again, with the ability to generate content, you will be able to create deepfakes. You will be able to do data poisoning. For instance, the data set which is going into training your model itself is poisoned, right? So the output of your model is also going to be totally unpredictable and unreliable, right? So those areas will certainly become more and more prominent as the industry evolves and moves forward, right? And for the benefit of the audience, there's a beautiful book called AI 2041. It's written by a gentleman called Kai-Fu Lee and Chen Qiufan. Right? It has these 10 short stories which actually touch upon the topics of biases, privacy, security, and the societal impact that AI can have by the age 2041. It's a fascinating read, right? Again, I would highly recommend anyone in the audience who wants to understand the societal impacts of these technologies, you should certainly read up that book.
So just to go back to your original question about AI. I think Piyush has done a great job of explaining how it's going to scale and what are the challenges. But where we are in AI today is, and how you obviously mentioned 2022 major event, whether it's going to where it cross the Turing test, so on and so forth, right? And now this 2024. As of today, as far as the intelligence of AI models is concerned, it is very very difficult to find spaces where human intelligence can meet up with the intelligence of an artificial intelligence model, right? Like, what is intelligence, right? I mean, you can't make it a mythical concept. You have to give intelligence has to be measured by some kind of a quantitative parameters. Now, if those parameters are for example, there was this very strong belief. I think this is something I and Piyush recently also discussed. There was always this belief. Okay, computer science can always do things like they can probably do derivative type of mathematical problems where you kind of keep on reducing to bring to certain results. But can they ever come up with creative solutions? Like for example, humans like you and me can come up with, okay, for us some things are very easy to answer. Let's say to a human being, if you ask, are there infinite primes? To a human being, the answer is actually something that he can give in one tweet. Let's say if you ask a human being, can you prove there are infinite primes? A human being can answer it in 2 lines and say, if there are finite primes, you multiply all the finite primes together plus 1 can never be factored into a prime and 1. So that means this assumption is wrong. That's why there can't be finite primes. This is a kind of a thing that human beings can create, right? Which are creative solutions. Where we came up with this to answer a certain question, we came up with this. Okay, there are finite primes P1 to Pn. We multiply all of them and create this number x, which is product of all these finite primes plus 1. And this leads to when you look at this particular number, this leads to a contradiction. This is actually Euler's proof, which was given orally. Whether an artificial intelligence can come up with proofs like this has always been a question. And what we are realizing is that AI is able to come up with proofs like this now.
Okay.
Right? If you look at the latest International Math Olympiad 2024, artificial intelligence could get a silver medal there, and I know the questions that you get there require that level of mathematical creativity. It's not somebody just giving you a very complicated integration equation and asking you to solve it, or asking you to derive something which is laborious in nature, or asking you to multiply. You need some amount of creativity there. They are coming up with solutions and they have been getting like silver medals. It's only a matter of time before they start beating every human that can get a IMO gold. Chess, we already know. Go, we already know. You look at writing, and we have seen that smart LLMs can do a better job than most journalists out there. And I think if you do, Turing test has proven that, and with every passing day, it's becoming more and more evident that an artificial intelligence can do a better job at editing a paper than an editor at one of Hindu or any of these magazines, like for grammar, for everything else. So the number of areas where human, and even in painting, right? Like some of these, like Sora, if you look at Sora, which is open, the kind of art it comes up with, and the spaces where humans can say that we are smarter than you is actually reducing. If you look at IIT JEE, it's very hard to imagine if you actually took at the most top models and subfine, like a supervised fine tune it for JEE examination, like our brains are SFT'd for during our 11th and 12th days. It's very hard to imagine a model not getting in top 100 JEE ranks. Like, it's hard to imagine. Yes, there are Indians who get gold medals at IMO. That's why I'm saying, and they go on to get in top 10. So I'm saying that they are going to beat these models. But it's becoming smaller and smaller. Can't I'm 100% sure no human being in India can get a higher score than these OpenAI models, because all you have there is basic data analytics, pie chart. This is 20, that is 40. How much is this more than that, or some nonsense like that? And what is this missing angle? All these two models have already become smarter. So the areas that you are saying that human being is actually And I think in a year's time, there won't be any such area where a human being can confidently say that he can quantitatively prove himself to be better, whether it is the Mensa test or any test.
Yeah.
Now the question comes, okay, if there is Manoj, if there is so much intelligence, why isn't there a consumer applications that are that smart and my life has not changed that much? And the answer finally comes down to the way the way product deployment has happened,
Yeah.
where these core AI and ML models did not have intelligence at an edge level.
Yeah.
Now, the biggest advantage of this DeepSeek and the way their things will go, the things that Open AI is also now forced to do, is to release edge level open source models, which can give edge level intelligence, and that can create the first step, which is the agentic layer, where you can train on your own data sets. Okay, RAG is from a previous generation, but now we call them agentic layer. We can adopt those models. We can adopt it for our specific data use cases, train them on that, and start getting edge level intelligence. Ideally, we should start seeing this in another 1-2 years. I don't know what you think about it, Piyush, because you are in core engineering.
Right. No, Manu, you're absolutely right. I mean, see, as these models become better, cheaper, and I would suggest the audience to go and read up about something called the Avon's paradox, right, which says that as the scale of a technology improves, right, and the energy costs go down, the adoption increases, which becomes like a virtuous cycle, essentially, right? And I also believe that in another 10-20 years, we are gonna go back to the probably a few thousand years. The human civilization will move back 1,000 years, and what I mean by that is, there was an age where mechanical work was automated, then came knowledge work, then came computers. Partial knowledge work also got automated. Then, the boom of can you make computers work for you became the new knowledge work. Now even that is getting automated, which essentially means humans will have a lot more free time at their hands. Right? That's how our ancestors used to live, right? You eat a bread in the morning, you have breakfast, and you have nothing to do through the day. That's where you produce artists, you produce musicians, right? You created real art, right? I believe we will go back to that era, while models will become, models around music and art will also get popular, will get stronger. But I do believe that's where the creative instincts of humans will kick in. And another area where I feel these models might still, do a slightly inferior job than humans would be anything that involves intuition, right? Something called a sixth sense, right? And that's something which is innate to all natural creatures, right? And anything to do with humans and emotions, right? While these machines will be able to understand your behavior, your patterns, and everything over time, but there is something, we are able to catch the energy of people around us. Right? We are able to understand the emotions of people around us. I think anything to do with humans and intuition would be the only area where we would be surpassing. We can surpass AI and ML in the future.
So yeah, that's a great note to end. Thank you so much. I mean, I think we've covered a lot of ground.
I am tempted to challenge that, but I won't. Because if I look at the kind of art AI produces, the music now they're producing, and these are like really early stage development. But whatever, I'll let you have the last word on that.
I can listen to the music generated by the models, and I can listen to Beethoven. So I know my heart will sing to Beethoven always. So maybe I'm biased.
I think there will be a phase when there will be a Turing test for that also, when you're not able to understand whether it's Beethoven that has generated this music or a AI model that has come up with this music. That's what I. But yeah, you are right. I want to believe on that positive note. Put aside my natural cynicism.
No, it's very fascinating because I'm sure if you do a follow-up after 6 months, we could be discussing something else. You can't tell what direction this whole AI would have taken. And as you said, as long as it's a gold medalist, it's great for us. But if it becomes an Einstein tomorrow, then you don't know what will start doing. I don't think any of us can predict that.
has won the Nobel Prize. I mean, we have to realize that current Nobel Prize winners is actually an AI/ML algorithm. It has been given to Hasnabi, the Google DeepMind gentleman, but I think his name is Dennis Hasnabi, right?
Yeah, correct, something
Yeah.
like that. Yeah.
Yeah, something like that. I'm sorry if I got the name wrong. I shouldn't. But it went to AlphaFold. That is an AI model. I mean, that is what I mean. Why that's one of great achievements of Einstein to win the Nobel Prize for his work in photoelectric effects.